everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson. I'll be your host for this one after missing out last week. Scott and Joris are still here, not physically still here. It's not that they've just been sat there waiting for me to return for an entire week, but maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know what happens when the camera goes off and they disappear into their lives, or they just sit there and wait for another week. Who knows? Guys, can you confirm whether you do or not? Do you actually go and do anything else, or are you just sat there waiting to talk about Belgian football for a whole 7 days?
Yeah, we haven't stopped talking actually. We haven't left. You just dropped in at this point right here. We just didn't record the other 6,000 hours because that would just be, that would take up the rest of Joris's life in an editing nightmare. I don't know about everybody else, but it's very warm where I am, and I'm guessing it's pretty warm where all of you are as well. It must be warm where you are, Joris.
Yeah. Finally, it's a very weird summer, but yes, today is really a summer day. After already a few days where it felt more like, okay, autumn has arrived officially already, which is obviously not the case. But yeah, it can stay a bit longer like this, but it's going to be difficult to talk, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit hot, as they say. For some sides, it's definitely feeling like a nice summer, a very decent summer. For a lot of sides, it's actually not feeling like a very nice summer at all. And they still got a lot of work to do. Let's quickly run through the results from this week so far. So St. Truiden, they beat Dender on Friday evening. That one finished 2-0. Club won the Bruges derby. They beat Cercle Bruges 2-0 as well. Although, to be fair, Cercle actually played pretty well and probably should have scored in the first half. They were pretty good. Westerlo lost late on to KV Mechelen. Benito Rama with his 100th career goal. So congratulations to Benito. Ghent lost 3-2 to Union Saint-Gilloise. That sounds like it was a lot closer than it actually was because the Ghent goals came very, very late on. So, yeah, it wasn't actually as close by that point. Raal got their first win of the campaign. They beat Charleroi 1-0 in the local derby. Anderlecht was stunned at home by Zotterwaregem. That one finished 3-2 with a late goal for Zotterwaregem. Stade Liège beat Genk 2-1, and Antwerp beat Leuven by 3-1. It feels kind of ridiculous to be talking about this at this point in the season already, guys, and I think if you kind of rewind football back kind of maybe 20 years ago, this conversation would just be thrown out completely because it's the most ridiculous thing to ever talk about at this stage in a campaign, just 3 games in. But we're already kind of seeing managers under pressure. And I've kind of put a little list together of guys that we're going to have to go through. And again, it seems ridiculous that the transfer window is still open, things can still happen. But the way modern football is now, it's just you go on a bad run of 5 games, you're under pressure. A couple more from that, then you're probably going to get the sack. Doesn't matter what you've done before and what you've done after. I mean, we saw it with Muslic last season. Like obviously, he delivered Cercle to that historic season, and then a couple of months later, because they're not doing so well domestically, while he's trying to balance the two things, and there were things out of his power that were going against him in terms of player kind of who he could pick for certain games and stuff. He was out. So yeah, it's definitely a what have you done for me lately sort of kind of environment and kind of business these days. The first one, we kind of all spoke about it after the game against Standard. We all kind of said that Fink is probably under some pressure. And Joris, obviously I'll go to you first on this one as the Genk fan and the person that's watched Genk a lot. And I think you were kind of talking about it's not just that the defeats are kind of they're something, but it's the manner of them and the repetition of things that are happening and stuff. And it's just like not learning from mistakes is what's kind of concerning you. I think you said when the subs were made, I think when you said that Saul was being brought on against a low block that Fink needs to be sacked straight after the game. I don't know if that was just emotion or if you kind of still believe that at this moment in time. But yeah, Genk obviously hit twice with stupidity. The first goal, stupid kind of mistake at the back, just sleepwalking into a penalty. Mesatu just reacted quicker and got the ball. Second one caught in the counter-attack. Thomas Henry, great pass, but as Joris, you mentioned when we were talking and watching the game, like he had just far too much space to make that pass. The touch from Fossey was great. The second touch was even better with the finish. The third, fourth, and fifth kind of things he did with his feet when he was doing those backflips and celebration was great. And I can't believe, I think Will said on commentary that he hasn't scored for an entire year. For such a kind of marauding fullback and stuff, you'd expect a little bit more, and it's kind of, yeah, you could see the relief on his face, but Yeah, Fink definitely is under some pressure, but how do you get rid of someone on an indefinite contract? Like, how do you? That feels like it needs a lot more negotiations. But Joris, I don't know if you kind of had more thoughts about this since the end of the game, or if it was just emotions at the moment. But I'm intrigued to see what your kind of thoughts on Fink's position. While it is feel too early to talk about, it feels like something probably does need to give in terms of he needs to kind of change a couple of things.
Obviously, that was mainly emotions. Also, I think you phrased it a little stronger than I actually did as well. Especially looking at the bench, that's partially up to him as well. But there was actually no one else that he could have brought on attacking me as well, outside of the changes he did make already. So that's not completely. That's I'm not going to completely ride on him necessarily. But yeah, it's way too early to talk about this as well. I don't think he's under as much pressure inside the club either yet, since they did give him that contract extension quite early on, not that long ago. Things have changed since, of course. The playoffs already were not great, but the start this season is at least all in points haul also not great, and indeed some things that annoy me as a fan, but that's more that at the moment, and things can change quickly on that if some balls fall right again, and don't hit the post like they did twice this weekend as well. Such things don't help, but there is some kind of repetition in there for sure, in the playing style and in the adaptation. What frustrates me more, which is more, I think, for the whole staff, but obviously I think is the head of the staff. Is the set pieces are both offensively and defensively still, just rubbish. I guess if you see Union score 3 times the night before in the same way, well, that says a lot about Gent as well at the same time, but also that they are putting in a lot of effort on this. On this, and it's paying off, and it just is not happening at Genk already last season. That was one of my main worries. This season even more, especially since with this repetition, obviously set pieces are, if things don't go there in open play, you can still maybe rely on set pieces to break a game open and get ahead, or grab something, or at least to create something. But it's not even that. It's not even, they're not even creating something. Like, I think I was even that cynical, and it was not completely wrong, but that it was the opponents need to start cheering when Genk get like a corner or a free kick at a dangerous area, because on the counter attack they are vulnerable then afterwards, and that is creating more danger for opponents at the moment than Genk itself. So that's a very frustrating watch, especially since there are some players in that squad and in that starting 11 that should be able to deliver a good cross, and if not, by now I would have liked to see a lot more variation. At least if it doesn't work in the regular way, then you can still try different ways and then surprise opponents maybe, and that is just not happening. So I hope there will be a bit more of a focus on that. Apart from that, it's still difficult to judge it as a moment. I think, given the opponents and what we know after the 3 games as well, Genk probably had the roughest start of all, so that they would not get the for example 3 wins in a row out of the 3 first games. That was not really expected. 1 point is of course not enough. That should have been more around 4 or so, something like that. Win 1, lose 1, and draw 1, something like that. But that also was possible, to be fair to think as well. It was all possible, but it is just a bit frustrating, the set pieces part, as I talked about, and the seeming lack of plan B, or that I'll also still give it that bit, maybe also playing with O in front is of course completely different than playing with Tolu. Like, either the system is not the players are not tweaking the system as much as the staff is hoping, or himself is not adapting enough to do what he is expected to do now. It's at times it has worked. For example, the very first half of the season against Club Brugge, it worked really well. At times it doesn't come off, and they need it's maybe just also a bit of a matter of confidence, I guess. I was still hoping when Tolo scored that 2-1 that maybe the scenario of last season would repeat itself with 1 point out of the first 2 games and then 2-0 behind against another top side, and turn it around in the last half an hour. While it was possible, it was not very likely to happen, though. Given the game that there was, it was not going to happen. But okay, we're actually not really talking about wanting to talk about the game as much as about Fink's position, I guess. But like I said in the beginning, I guess he's not completely under pressure yet. The next game might change that, and anyway, the European qualifiers. They are already certain of a group stage, of course, but it's high time to get some confidence, and maybe those games can serve to that. And the next domestic game is against another manager that is under pressure already as well, to segue to that as well already against OHA Leuven in Leuven. So another away game, which might complicate things. Last season they lost there. But this season Leuven don't look so great either, and I guess that's a good point to hand it over to you guys. Of course, feel free to still add some things on Fink as well.
Yeah, well, on the Leuven link, thanks for that segue, Joris. I've written a little piece on what's going on at Leuven at the moment, or what they hope is going to be going on David Huber and Leuven on the Substack. Go and check that out if you haven't already. We'll share another link to it as well at some point soon, so you can circle back to that one. Just some words, some thoughts on Fink. I think he was quite bullish in his post-match press conference after the game, and was quite keen to point out that they're actually playing quite well. And when you look at some of the basic data, just the initial stuff, I think the numbers do tend to back that up. I think the frustrating things are some of the individual mistakes kind of creeping in, and things like that. But I think there's enough to indicate that, you know, things will kind of change. Joris's point about them having a really difficult start, I think, is a really fair one. It would have been pretty surprising if they'd, you know, collected maximum points from their opening 3 games anyway. It's just they haven't quite got probably what they deserved when you look at some of the data. They've had some refereeing decisions go against them that are a tad questionable. I'll put that out there instead of Joris, but they've been on the raw end of some rubbish decisions, I think, as well. Fink was keen to kind of point that out, but he did treat us to one of those brilliant motivational sporting lines as well. Winners don't doubt, doubters don't win. That's what he reminded us all of. And you know, this is somebody who obviously has a long-standing connection to Bayern, and there's a winning culture there that is kind of unique and famous in its own right. And I'm sure that's a phrase that, you know, I mean, he's held onto in his pocket from his time at Bayern. But that made me laugh and made me think, you know, where do these weird motivational sporting phrases come from that they paint on walls? Because are there any good ones? I'm not sure there are, but that one did make me laugh. But yeah, on a more serious note, I think all the indications are that they're generally playing quite well. They're not really getting the rub of the green at the moment. The issue is whether they can get that first win, and whether that'll be the start of a torrent of wins, which I think is kind of what they're hoping. I think he's glad to have got this spell out of the way, Fink. And in some ways, the next fixture, as Joris was saying, Leuven is ideal in many respects. On them, I think Uber's definitely under pressure, just because he's already clearly identified what's wrong at the club. Again, go back to the Substack article. All of it's in there, but they've had a really poor start, and actually their start has kind of meant that they're now making a lot of the mistakes that they made before. We're seeing the Leuven that we've seen in recent seasons, a side on low on confidence, a side that isn't gelling, that isn't strong enough offensively and isn't doing any of the things that David Huber was brought in to do. So, interestingly, he did say this weekend, actually, he was pleased with the reaction. Despite losing, he thought, after getting hammered 5-0 last week, he thought they were decent despite losing this weekend. And I'm not sure the Leuven fans agree with him, because their idea of what is acceptable and what David Huber finds acceptable, there's obviously kind of quite a chasm there. I did notice that on social media as well. But yeah, I think he's definitely under pressure, because at the moment they do not have the quality and strength and depth to particularly dig themselves out of the early situation that they've got into, and they need to get some points on the board just to kind of give themselves a foothold, I feel. I think that's really important.
I'm bizarrely going to defend Huber. Many people probably predicted that I was going to go all in on Leuven, but they haven't had the easiest of starts. Like, they should have beaten Charleroi 2-0 up. Really should have won that game. Didn't see it out. Classic them, sort of like Union away from home. Like, whatever. Like, you're going to get battered, because if you crap against Union, they'll destroy you. Antwerp as well are like, just, it's a tough place to go. Genk next, it's going to be a tough one, no expectation. It's then where they've got Dender, Standard, Zoldvargem and Raal all in a row. Like, those are the games they have to pick up some points from. And you kind of... I honestly, I don't think Huber's the right man for the job anyway. Like, I've said that before. I don't think he's the right person. But I also think Sesbreguy needs kind of a long, hard look in the mirror, because what's he actually done? Like, let's be real. Like, he got that job after the Beerschot promotion, but all those players that he bought at Beerschot were rubbish in the Pro League. Do you know what I mean? Like, was that just the biggest fluke ever done? I can't remember the name of the Austrian head coach, but was he kind of basically just did that mask over actually some not very good recruitment? Because the recruitment again this season for Leuven looks poor. Like, you're looking at some of the new guys coming in, they just don't look up to the standard again. And you're relying on some of the guys that have been there have always been there. So, like, Traore looks really young. He looks like, you can tell he's like young and not experienced at this level. And it's like he's being asked to score the goals, and there's some other things there. So, yeah, I put his name down, but I don't actually think he's under pressure, because I don't see how he can be under any pressure, because it's like, what were they expecting to happen in these 3 games? Like, it is going to be Dender, Standard, not so much like Standard is kind of the outlier there, because I think they're playing really well and they're like looking quite good. But it's Dender, Zoldvargem and Raal that they have to get wins in all 3 of those games, in my opinion, for him to kind of be like, look, like, this is a project that's going somewhere. My biggest worry again with them is that, yes, that there's time left on the transfer window, but they've already been very active in the transfer window. And Scott obviously did a piece. I did another piece looking at the link between them and Leicester City, because that is, we've known it has been quite strong. But in recent years, there's been no one making the move from Leicester to Leuven since, I think it was Opoku, and that was 2022, 2023. So it's a long time ago. Kamal Sow is obviously probably the big one that you can kind of put on the pedestal as to being a success of that kind of relationship. But why, and this is what I wrote, I don't understand why Leicester aren't looking at Brighton and looking at Monaco and thinking, we could be double recruiting, basically. We could recruit for the first team and to try and get back into the Premier League, and we could be recruiting with the kind of Brighton model of like players that we think could be quite good, but they're not ready yet to kind of help us in the first team. But they can go and get a bit of football experience in Leuven. You could do what Brighton did with Union, which is it only needs to be 2 or 3 players a season that go over there. It's great for work permit situations. Obviously, we know that's one of the reasons they did it before. But it's kind of like, I don't understand why that link just seems to have died, apart from a couple of friendlies. And obviously, the kit's kind of looking the same with King Power like blazed all over them and stuff. So, yeah, if there's any Leicester fans listening that know what is going on with their under-23 squad, and if there's anyone that can defend in the under-23s, that's the first thing that'd be quite useful. And anyone that can score a goal in the under-23s would also be really useful. So if you know any of those players, like, yeah, hit up Sesbreguy, because they need them over there. Other name we put down, and it was if we had kind of said pre-season that we're going to stick a list of names together after Matchday 3 for managers that might be under pressure, this name would have been like circled, highlighted, like it'd been the first name on the list, and it'd be Hazi. But it's kind of like the Brian Reimer situation all over again for me, because you actually look at the body of work so far, and it's like, okay, well, they've actually only lost twice, but it's the two defeats that they've lost, the two games that they've lost, which are just massive kind of red herrings. It's the Hacken game, obviously, away in the Europa League. Respect to Hacken, like Anderlecht should be able to go there and do a job on the Allsvenskan side, and they didn't. Zoldvargem at home, obviously that's like losing to a newly promoted side in the manner that you lose is never great. Gabriel was busy in goal, but like, because I was like toying with like, who am I going to put as my man of the match, player of the week sort of thing, and I was like, I'll just see who Footmob rated, and Gabriel was rated really highly, and I was like, I'm going to go watch the highlights again just to kind of see. And like, he made some good saves, but he also made a lot of mistakes that they just didn't punish. So obviously the way they scored like a penalty and then the own goal. So Hazy is just, yeah. Again, you look at kind of the games they've got coming up. Obviously, they have to beat Sheriff again. Like that, they're already 3-0 up. They should just see that one out. But it's Anderlecht, and you just don't know if they're going to do it. But then they've got Dender should win, pressure on if they don't. Ghent, Union, Genk, Antwerp. Like those are kind of the 4 games that if he doesn't get some results out of that, I could see him being. He's under pressure, but it's like how like stuck are they in the kind of being like, we don't want to show that we've made a mistake. So are they going to drag this out for longer than it actually needs to be dragged out for?
It's kind of a weird one, this one, because Besnik was talking a lot about how he's, particularly after this weekend, after losing to Zalta, he felt they were a bit tired. They just weren't at their best. Now, offensively at times, they're looking quite good. They're looking like they could overrun teams, and they've got the kind of pace and power to do that a little bit now. And they've got some options up the top end. The real issue is the back door. That's where they're really vulnerable. And, if they could just, pull their socks up there a little bit. But I find this whole tiredness thing really, really weird. I actually thought they were rotten this weekend. I really did. I just, they didn't look, okay, it may be tiredness, but they actually didn't look interested. Regular listeners will know I love a bit of body language, and I was watching that while I was thinking it. I thought they just looked like they can't be bothered. And actually, nobody had any ideas. Nobody was looking to make any runs. There was no movement at all. There was lots of back passing going on, and just no positive use of space in any sense at all. And you just felt like nothing was going to happen. And of course, things only start to happen a little bit when you concede. So you have to go and make something happen. And he just looked kind of resigned to it all, Besnik Kazi, in the touchline. Yeah, I think he's under pressure in the sense that, they need to get some consistency going, and they've started reasonably promisingly, but they have to finish the job in Europe, I think, and they have to cut out results like that. But what that did underline to me is that Anderlecht still do have a performance like that in them, which is well below even what you would consider was acceptable. The thing about it as well is this is not a good Zalta side by any stretch of the means. This is a poor Zalta side who don't have a lot to offer themselves at the moment, and who I think are going to struggle for the majority of the season. So for them to go to Brussels and to score 3 times in the manner that they did and come away with the points without doing too much, in truth, because they didn't do a lot in the game, although it is all about efficiency, of course. First mentioned this week, it's all about taking your chances, and I'll acknowledge that they took them, and that's all that you need to do. But still, that side, they really didn't offer very much in the game at all, and that's probably the very worrying thing from Anderlecht's kind of point of view. But yeah, I think they have enough tools at their disposal now to create an impression. It's just about kind of getting some consistency going. We know they're still hawking around trying to sell at least one of those players, Verscharen, Stroikens, Dolberg, Leone. One of those they would quite like to go for a reasonably big fee. Some of those players have been offered around as well. Agents' phones have been ringing to try and hurry that along a little bit. And again, like I was saying last week, I'm still surprised that there's been such little interest in some of these players, to be honest. That might, in a way, tell a bit of its own story.
Oh, a few things to touch on here for sure. Hazy, well, since he's the main character here, Yeah, not being ready. Being tired now. I think there was a quote 2 weeks ago, probably, because that's how long the season actually still is that they might not be ready yet physically. So, like, how are they now tired? That's balancing out these quotes very strangely. And also already finding another excuse in advance already after the game as well. Like, he finds that the game against Dender, which is the midday game, first game on Sunday, is too early after the trip to Raspal. So again, playing the tiredness card a little bit on already in advance. I do think that Zulte Waregem were the first team to really dig in and let Anderlecht come at them, and they'll just defend. And they couldn't cope with it, and we're going to see a lot more of that. It's another thing that other sides in the league also have issues with breaking them down. And with Anderlecht, they have some players that can break these kind of games open, but I'm not sure if they are consistent enough already or anymore at the same time at both stages of all stages of the careers. That's he's really under pressure for sure. And like, if they don't qualify in Europe, this round they will survive. But if they don't qualify in the game after that, against either AEK Athens or Larnaca, they will he really will be under pressure. And I in the current state of things, I also wouldn't say that then would be a game that you see them win. They didn't win their last season, of course. Partially, this could be a good sign. The pitch was quite bad there, I guess. And at this stage of the season, that should not be the case yet, of course. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, Zulte Waregem, like Scott's mentioned, were not even playing that well or digging in or defending well enough. They made some stupid mistakes as well to concede. Actually, both goals. And nonetheless, they managed to score 3. It could have even added a few more, or at least one more at the complete end as well of the game. Yeah, worrying signs for Anderlecht. Indeed, they've only lost 2 games, but that's 2 games. Yeah, a club against Anderlecht that's losing 1/3 of your games without having played any big opponent yet. That's another factor, of course. Yeah, that's just too much already. Of course, like, if they would now lose against Tiraspol but still go through, it will not help the whole general atmosphere. But that one won't kill him. But that could just add some extra oil on the fire for that's starting to burn, maybe. Yeah, so I do think he's indeed under a lot of pressure. But yeah, on Zulte Waregem, also kudos to them, of course. They're still winning. This is the 3rd time in a row they win 3-2 against Anderlecht at home and away, combined. So that's an interesting stat. Last time they did go down though, so let's hope for them that's not the case this time. The chances are sliver anyway, of course.
Yeah, I'm kind of almost operating. I can't see anyone. There's only a couple of teams I can see going down this year. I'm really having to push to see them going down. That's how big a gap I think there might be. It really just depends on the CPL side, obviously. Couple of other names I put down, but we don't need to discuss them. Just we can put them on kind of like the watch list, I guess. Rick DeMille, obviously at Charleroi. I think he's got enough in the bank for now. They just need to turn things around. They've always had the European stuff to factor in to start with, so maybe they can kind of settle into a little bit more of a rhythm. Sanel as well, but I don't think he's really under any pressure because he can literally just turn around and say, if you give me a goal scorer, I could probably get some things done here. We had so many chances against clubs and we couldn't bloody put them in the back of the net. We just need to finish our chances. But they still haven't scored a goal yet, and that's kind of
exactly. That's
but is that his fault? Because they're creating chances, they are creating opportunity. So he's I'm doing my bit. It's just someone needs to put the ball in net, and he physically can't make them do that. Someone just needs to put it in the goal. speak of creating chances, one of the best at creating chances is now back in the league. Junior Ito has made his return to Genk. Last time we saw him was the 2021-2022 campaign. 8 goals, 19 assists in 49 games. Season before that, 12 goals, 14 assists in 42 games. Interesting one. I've added this as a kind of little segment because I'm interested to hear Joris's thoughts, and Scott obviously as well. Feel free to chime in about kind of Ito coming back, 32 years old. Obviously, he's been in France with Rams for a couple of seasons now. They've been relegated to Ligue 2, so he was very much hoping to return to Belgian football. Said he wants to win a couple of things back here as well, so interested if he can get that done. It's kind of one of those big kind of questions in football, isn't it? Like, is it ever a good idea to go back to somewhere where you've had some success, and can you ever replicate that success? I'm trying to think off the top of my head of kind of players that I know that have like gone away, come back, and it's very hard to think of players that have made it a successful kind of thing, or been able to at least have even like a portion of the success that they had before. Saying that, he kind of, at least I guess he feels a void in the sense of he's coming as an experienced head into a pretty young team, and that could be really, really beneficial. His numbers have not been bad either. It's not like he's been a bad player suddenly if in the last 3 seasons. Like, he's still good. He is still a good player. So it's whether or not he can be... I don't think we should expect to see old Ito, Genk Ito, but he could still have an impact. But Joris, what were your kind of thoughts when you saw this? And obviously, I can't remember how much the fee was, but I don't think it was massive.
Around 3 million, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah.
So not huge, but...
in regular football terms of now, I guess that's not that much, indeed. One example of a player that did that and had a very successful second spell is actually Besnik Hazi at Genk in his playing career to make that full circle. But that's long ago, of course. You're right. In principle, I have a little pro and con list, and that's definitely one of them. That's actually balancing a bit, like sentiment playing maybe partially in his favor as well. For already, the fans are behind him, but also the expectations are there. Of course, that's one that's a bit balancing, and that I've added to both columns actually. There, but you already mentioned another one, of course, as well. Experience in a young squad, still good stats, adding some competition, and not only that, I mean, he's different than the other players in the position. He in the sense of like, he can be a game changer on his own. He has a bit of a different profile. He can maybe with a flash can create something on his own. Like, of course, other players also do that, like the Stukers, but with the Stukers, it comes a bit more. Ito also has that, but a bit more with the assists, where you still rely on someone else, of course. While Ito also has a bit more goals out of open play in him, or had at least. I'm not too worried about his level, of course. His age is there, and he has always relied not solely, luckily, but also on his pace. That will, doubtlessly have fallen back a little bit. And another thing coming with age, of course, are injury worries. He came actually with a slight injury from last season still. But I think that's more or less resolved now, is what the latest from I've heard. So he should be able to play actually more or less from start. Question then is, of course, will he? Is adding competition, like how he mentioned Stukers? That's actually the position that he's aiming for, I suppose, most likely. Although we might see one of them move to the other wing and both starting. How Fink will fill that in, we'll have to wait and see. But it gives him more options. Hopefully also more goals from different players, because that's actually another issue from the current Genk side. And and the one other positive as well is, of course, like I already mentioned, there's a few, I think I already mentioned, or maybe that was in our pre-chat, there's a lot of Japanese players, and there's a few of them also at young Genk, to maybe help them integrate better in case that's needed. I don't have any insight info if that's the case, but it cannot hurt at least to have someone in between again as well, and that maybe can be a role model for them specifically as well. And 3 years contract, that's another like, is it a good or a bad thing? It's a bit of a risk, but it could not. I mean, we know with Japanese players, maybe to use a stereotype differently. So that might not always be the best choice, but like often they stay fit for quite a bit longer and play long as well. Just in general, play longer than many European players do. Although in general, it's anyway becoming more and more professional. So players keep on playing it longer in general. Not everyone, of course, but let's hope that's the case with him as well. So yeah, I'm whether I'm super excited, well, I'm happy, to be honest, because of what on the qualities that he brings. I think he should still add value, and it's not just a return to have a return, unlike Casamata. That was a bit more risky anyway. He had done less at his clubs after he left Genk the first time. And yeah, that showed in his second spell as well, that he was not at that level anymore. But with Ito, I have a little less worries for that. But yeah, we will have to wait and see anyway, as usual. But I hope he can still bring something in the dressing room, if at the very least, and hopefully also still on the pitch, which, yeah, at least in the first season should hopefully still be the case.
I think if he's half as good as he was last time he was in Belgium, then it'll be worth the signing, worth bringing him back. Joris has already mentioned, I think, the two most important things. One, technically he's brilliant. Game changer in his own right, as Joris was saying. Absolutely, what an option to have. And I don't think he's lost that ability. And the other point is the one Joris was making about culturally, Japanese players are extremely fit and really do look after themselves. So I think the longevity aspect of this is a positive probably as well. And at that price, not a lot to disagree with. So yeah, I hope we're in for as much entertainment as we were first time round.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed. It'd just be good to see him back in a Genk shirt, wouldn't it? Like it just feel natural. Feel like the world's back in balance a little bit. It's always nice. And yeah, I hope like Scott says, if he's half as good as he was, then that'd be good enough, wouldn't it? At least for now. That is just one transfer that's gone through recently. There've been a couple of others that we can quickly touch on. So we had today, Antwerp made a signing. They signed Kiki Kuyate from Montpellier, Malian central defender, lots of kind of experience at the international level. I have a very good friend of mine is a Montpellier fan, so I was like, well, I could just ask him what he thinks of him. And his first words that he said to me were, "He's crap." And the second word was just one, and it was donkey. So safe to say, Montpellier fans aren't too impressed with what they got out of Kiki Kuyate during his time there. I mean, it doesn't help that they got relegated last season. So, yeah, I think they've been on a downward spiral anyway. But to be fair, like he's got so much experience from playing in the French leagues and stuff like that. And but Antwerp really did need another central defender, one that hopefully can kind of slot in alongside some of those younger guys and give them a little bit of a boost. So, I mean, I don't think there's a transfer fee's been kind of said. I think it was free as well. So, I mean, that seems like a pretty good deal to me, despite what my Montpellier friend has told me. But I feel like he says that slightly loaded because of the current situation the club finds themselves in. Another central defensive kind of transfer, Stelios Andreu, I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen this one fully confirmed, but I'm now seeing it kind of pop up in a couple of places. He's gone to Łódź, Widzew Łódź in Poland. Quite a strange one, guys, because I feel like a couple of years ago, I felt like he was kind of really highly regarded as he was coming through, and people were kind of saying that this guy's could potentially go on and be quite decent, but he kind of feels like he's dropped off, and it looks like from the fee that I'm seeing, they're not getting that much for him either. So that's quite interesting. Get your thoughts on that in a second. And then obviously kind of the big one, maybe we could call it the big one, is you guys have called him, yeah, you guys put down Smith on kind of this transfer tracker thing, and I was like, who the hell is Smith? I was like, I can't find this Smith anywhere.
Smithy. He's just going to get called Smithy, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously everyone knows that Smith is actually the Brazilian midfielder who's just come over, the striker from Nomakariu in Estonia. He's joined Union Saint-Gilloise. His first name's Guillaume, and I feel like that's what all I've seen is Guillaume everywhere. So I was looking for Guillaume. I was like, no one's written down him, but people have written down this Smith bloke. Like, it can't be him. Yeah, he's Brazilian, obviously, so he calls Smith. Is he the next promised David? I guess that's the big question. But any of those transfers kind of intrigue you guys? Any interest you? Any you think? Do you think Kouyaté is going to prove Montpellier fans wrong and be a success in Antwerp?
It's kind of it's a weird bag. It feels like it's been a relatively quiet week for Mercato news. On the Union one, I'm going to err on the positive for this without knowing anything about him, because with Union's recruitment, we don't need to big that up any more than we always do when we're talking about this particular subject. The chances of them being right are weighed heavily in their favour on the basis of consistency of decision making. The new Antwerp signing is I'm kind of underwhelmed by it, if I'm honest. I don't know much about him at all, but he does have good international experience and a lot of League One experience, albeit he played in a side that did get relegated. He does have over 100 League One games to his credit, which is something interesting, and we do expect them to lose Van den Bosch as well. So they're being preemptive here, I think, with that, which is probably no bad thing. If they get a solid workman-like centre-half, then okay, he doesn't have a great deal of resale value, obviously, because he's at the peak of his career now, but maybe that's what this side needs, arguably, possibly in the short term at the moment as well. And on the Andreu one, I think what that just highlights for me is it's classic Charleroi recruitment in terms of their outgoings. You've got a little bit of quality, a player who's been pretty decent leaves, but it just highlights that there's really nobody coming in. And it asks big questions around all of the recruitment and what the fuck they're doing there, really.
Yeah, on the Smith one as well, or Guilherme probably more likely indeed. He's more of a left winger, of course, than an out-and-out striker. So that's what just wanted to mention that. He also had like 12 assists, I believe, in the Estonian league, 5 goals. Not too shabby, but yeah, the Estonian league. As much as I love Estonia as a country, I'm not sure how to rate the Estonian league. Even if we had a success story in our amongst our midst in the last season, for sure. Yeah, much like you guys, I don't know much about the Antwerp defender that's coming in, Kiku Kouyaté, but yeah, again, like experience in League One, many years there. Maybe also to nuance a bit Ben's friend's words in general. If a side goes down, it's more likely than not that the people at the back might get some criticism and then get some responsibility thrown at them, rightfully or not. Well, there will be probably some kind of truth in there, but otherwise he probably would not have been a player that would be especially currently available for Antwerp as well. So we will have to see how he fares in the Belgian league. And indeed, it's a bit of proactive work with the Van den Bosch rumors intensifying to several clubs. So we will have to see where he ends up. And I also added one more that I found interesting, but that's a completely different side. Lutonda going to Rao as well. That might be a good injection for them. Former Anderlecht youth academy player, I guess. I'm not sure if he actually made appearances in the first squad, but he then went to the Netherlands and had a few good seasons. Relatively good seasons, at least in the last couple, is it 2 or 3, maybe even seasons. It'll be interesting to see what he can bring at Real this season as well. But at first look, that seems to be a decent signing from a non-top side here as well, to also smuggle one of them in next to Andreu, which I guess I don't have to add much there either. We already touched on everything there. I don't see it now, but I'm supposing he was running out of contract soon as well, so that maybe they needed to sell him. So that's maybe why the sum is indeed relatively low. Although for the side that he's going to, I'm not sure if it's that low actually. That's another topic again as well. So that's maybe shows some trust in him from their side. But we will. It's a bit of a weird move indeed, and I would not have thought he would be going at this stage of his career to Poland. With all due respect, as well. But we will see how he fares there, and if we see his name pop up somewhere else later on in his career again as well.
Yes, to be fair, the extra class has been pretty busy in bringing players in from the Belgian league, and most of them have done pretty well. Obviously, Brad Bruns, Lakov, he's done pretty well. Golozade did pretty decently with Lech Poznan. I'm sure there's a couple of others that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Might see him soon as well.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I wonder, is that? I mean, we need to do the CPL preview for me to answer this myself. But that bloke that joined from the Polish second tier for Kortrijk, like, how's he getting on? Like, is he still there?
No, he's away. He's away. He's already left Belgium.
I saw that Coston's somehow got to move to the Eredivisie after his non-existent Kortrijk existence. So who knows what happened there. Anyway, let's get on to Player of the Week. We will talk about the CPL because obviously it kicked off, but let's start with Player of the Week. I'm gonna Scott, you can go first on this one. You actually gave me a name this week as well, so there should be no crossover. And then Joris, you can obviously give your honourable mentions because I know you've probably got a couple.
Well, this week I've gone for St Truden's Louis Patrice. I thought he had a really, really solid game this weekend. Great heat map. He was all over the place. I did think that when I was watching the game actually on Friday night. I thought, Christ, he's popping up everywhere. He's on it tonight. But yeah, looking at his numbers just kind of confirmed, really, really strong game actually. 3 chances created, 2 big chances, 7 passes into the final third, 75% of his dribbles completed, not far off 100 touches, 4 touches in the opposition box. You know, he really he really added something offensively to St Truden this weekend, and obviously defensively won the majority of his tackles as well. So his tracking back was great. And when you look at his heat map, you can see that there's a really even distribution actually down that right hand side between his offensive work and those red areas, getting into those channels where you want him to be in an attacking sense, but also equally defensively. He was pretty active as well. So really, really solid all-round performance from a young defender who I think is, a little bit underrated, I think. There has been a suggestion that St Truden might lose him, and they may yet, but it'll probably depend on a decent offer kind of coming in for him. I think they are braced for him possibly leaving, but they will hope that he doesn't.
Yeah, I feel like they could really do with keeping him, to be honest. I feel like the obvious statement of the week kind of for me there, but it's just, I don't know what the market would be for him. That's what because I think you said that a couple of weeks ago as well, Scott, about Patrice. And I was just like, who would it be? Another Belgian club? I'm like, would it be some championship team might chuck a load of money at him as well? Those are the only 2 kind of things I could see happening. Would be another side, but the only other side, it's not going to be one of the top sides. It'd be one of those middling sides. So it's kind of like, is the money going to be there? I doubt it. But a championship team. I mean, if Dion Deneve can get a move, then Patrice can get a move to the championship, to be honest, if that's the way things are going. Joris, over to you for your Player of the Week.
I don't remember if I promised to not pick a player that played against Genk either when I made that promise. But okay, at least it's not a player of Genk. In this game, this time I am choosing for some second week in a row, more or less, for strikers that I personally also don't necessarily rate as high. Last week it was Lauberbach. But this week it is Thomas Henry. He had a good game. Of course, it's a bit based on stats. Sandar didn't have much possession anyway, so he couldn't really do that much, but he really was winning a lot of duels, or at least keeping Smits and Sadik, both of them actually even quite busy during this week. And on top of that, of course, he scored, albeit a penalty, but that helps. And there was that it hurts to say a very, very good assist to Fossi as well. looking back at that goal as well, it has been mentioned by Ben before. Yes, at first I thought he got too much pace, and I still believe that as well. They should have covered him and taken out that cross if possible. But also, why is Kayembe or anyone else, but mainly Kayembe not tracking Fosse at all? That's the bigger main issue as well. You could really see that goal coming from miles away. Unfortunately, but yeah, that was a really great ball, and eventually these are the match winning statistics for them as well, of course. But yeah, even before that, I didn't mention it to you guys, I think, but I was already thinking like, he's actually giving the defenders a really good go. So even without his stats, he would have made my short list. Yeah, I don't really have a big short list, but I have a shout out I want to make as well. At least is Kevin Rodriguez, who scored after 364 days to circle back to Union and Union's recruitment, and maybe one of the players that at the moment he's still there, so he has time to change it, but hasn't really come off. So it's not that it's all coming off, but yeah, you will always have some mishaps. But he did get a goal this weekend, so shout out to him for sure as well. Deserved a mention for sure. Yeah, and apart from that, I have to admit I wasn't able to watch as much this weekend as I was hoping for to. But also, I feel like there were not that many standout performances from starting players. I did like at Zultuarium, how composed Ehrenberg scored his winning goal, and also Traoré, he didn't score, but like he was also subbed on, and well, both of them were subbed on, so that makes it quite difficult, even though I did it already with Verracini as well, to choose them as man of the match. But they really made it, killed the game for Zultuarium against Anderlecht, actually. And yeah, we're perfectly playing like that. And the rush from Traoré, both for that third goal and the chance he eventually misses, were quite promising to see. But yeah, I see, and I'll try to get some more variation because I've now returned to my previous ones. I see I'm going mainly for the attackers. I'll see if I can diversify in the next few weeks as well. But I guess for me this week it's Thomas Henry, for as player of the week.
Nice, yeah. I thought he was brilliant. He was so physical up there. He was really wasn't always able to hold the ball up, but when he tried, and it made such a difference for them to kind of get out of jail and kind of try and get progress up the pitch. And there's just something about a big number 9 having that big presence. It can just make such a difference for a side like Sander that didn't have one last season. Like, it really, really, really does. We've got defender, we've got striker. I'm going to go midfielder, so we were just missing a goalkeeper, but that's fine. I've gone for Mahamadou Doumbia from Antwerp. Big fan of his. I really like. I really just like massive physical central midfielders, just like really tall, just like dominating central midfielders, and he just feels like one of them for me. And there's something about when this man hits a ball, like he puts everything into it. Do you know what I mean? He proper whacks it. His penalty was so good, like top bins, fantastic. He scored a couple of screamers in his time already, but yeah. It wasn't just that, it's just the way he kind of played in the midfield. So like you just look at kind of the stats as well, like Joris is always talking about stats with Thomas Henry. So he completed the most dribbles in the game against Leuven with 7. He was the most fouled player, like 5 times. That shows again like how physical he is in that central area. And you look at the players he's up against in that Leuven midfield, and even though they're quite senior, some of them are much more senior to him, like he's going to bully them. We didn't mention Verstraete getting sent off. Joris' favourite player getting sent off against his former club. I feel like we could have done that, but I've just dropped it in there now for you. That was quite hilarious. Doumbia, he also won the most duels with 12 in that game. So yeah, he got a goal. He was just kind of really, really dominant in the midfield against Slivers, Verstraete, Terhera, all those guys in and around there. But yeah, Mahamadou Doumbia, I believe that he will more than likely be leaving Antwerp next season because I think he's just going to have such a good campaign. Let's drop down, like Leuven might be, into the Challenger Pro League. which kicked off this weekend, and it actually kicked off this weekend, despite some kind of is it, will it, won't it? We got there in the end. Scott, I'm going to hand over to you to run us through the results and any of the kind of key talking points that came out from the first weekend's action.
Yeah, well, Matchday 1, the new season of Challenger Pro League, what happened? Olympic Charleroi managed to get thumped 4-1 by Young Gent at the Stade du Pays. Of course, they're playing at their rivals' stadium for the first 2 or 3 weeks while some work goes on at their own ground. Serang lost 2-1 to Beerschot. Anderlecht Futures lost 3-1 to Kortrijk. Eupen beat RFC Liège 2-0. Likewise, Beveren beat Liège 2-0. Molenbeek and Lommel finished 3 apiece. Patro Eisden won 2-1 against Lokeren, and Club Next and Frank Moran finished 1 apiece. I think the main talking point this week, probably from the CPL's perspective, is more to do with the TV coverage. Word on DAZN, of course. Now, in DAZN's contract, they are only obliged now to cover four of the 8 games. So it looked like there was going to be no coverage of half of the fixtures every weekend. But at the very last minute, they did decide, nope, we will cover all of the games. What did that mean, though? It meant not sending cameras to all of the games and giving them full coverage. Half of the games at the moment are covered by tactical cameras. So for those of you who don't know what these are basically the cameras installed by clubs inside the stadium, either somewhere in the stands or on top of the stands, that the video analyst team and the tactical analysts use for their own purposes post-match. Now, they're not intended to be broadcast quality or provide the same sort of coverage as broadcast cameras. So, as we've already discovered, there's been some pretty appalling quality footage we've seen. A lot of complaints, and DAZN are feeling the heat on this a bit. They're getting a bit of a roasting, and I think rightly so. I think this is, although contractually they only have to cover 4 of the games, it's pretty problematic. It's not a good look at all. There was a meeting, I think, in the last 24 hours between DAZN and the Pro League as well to have a chat about what they could do about this, and DAZN have apparently offered to send some more cameras out, not enough to cover the games to the same extent that the 4 games with full coverage are getting, but enough to hopefully improve it a little bit. So we'll see if that changes in the coming week, guys. But, what a mess, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. At least like they're indeed sending 2 cameramen as well to each of them, so that can, if need be, as well correct something still, I guess, hopefully as well. But yeah, it's such a mess. It's not a good look, and they know it's in. I think that's why, at least for once, there seem to be quick measurements taken. Well, still too late. I guess who could have foreseen this? But once they announced the cameras, as we actually talked about a little bit last week already as well. But yeah, that's at least there's something done about it. But yeah, a bit late, and hopefully not too little. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, just stupid. That is just so bad, isn't it? It's just, oh yeah. You just feel for those fans who are like, yeah, can't wait to watch my team, and then like I could barely even see my team. Like, have no idea what's going on, and it really just take kind of like you do. It is a real struggle to concentrate when the camera is that bad, like, and you're trying to focus, especially for the neutrals. You're just like, well, I'll just go watch something else then. So it's not a great advert for the CPL, that's for sure. And it's one of those things. If the games were all at the same time, you could kind of be like, okay, I kind of understand. Like, it doesn't matter too much because it's like, but when the games are all spread out for that reason as well, it's like, what's the point? Like, it's just not watchable.
The fun was also with the commentators, because they also couldn't make out all the players at a certain point of time. So they stopped mentioning them player names until they were really, really certain. Like when a goal was scored, for example. They really were certain who would score it. So they had to do some tweaking to that commentary as well.
Oh, who'd be a commentator in that position? That'd just be ridiculous. 2 points I just did want to make. First was Jerry Ambrose scoring twice. If he has like a decent little August, do we reckon a team will make a little kind of a little punt on him again, like Kortrijk did when he went down with Eastend. They took a punt on him. If he has a pretty decent kind of August, that could happen maybe. Could see a side getting desperate. And then, yeah, shout out to Isaac Nuhu. Do you remember when he was linked with Genk? Like, do you remember those days? Completely kind of fell away. Last season only played, I think I've got it written down, it was like 4 games for Erpen. Like really must like clearly struggle with injury and stuff. Great to see him back and scoring. So really hope he can kind of get back going again. He's still only 23, got so much kind of time ahead of him. He was always quite a fun one to watch, quite raw. Needed a bit of fine tuning and stuff, but having those sort of injuries where you kind of miss a whole campaign really doesn't help at that age. So fingers crossed he can get something going. Anything else catch your guys' eyes? Well, if you could watch it, I guess, in the challenges this week.
Yeah, I actually had a little flick at some of the tactical camera stuff. The stuff I saw wasn't that bad. It wasn't great. I did see some of the screenshots from the really bad stuff, and they do need to get that sorted, actually, because for the poor sods who were watching that, it must have been like watching those games in a blizzard. But at least in those games when the weather's like that, you do actually have the luminous ball and sides in really different kits. Those cameras, yeah, just they're not going to cut it at all.
No, absolutely not. I think that pretty much does it for this week's episode. Just to sign off with saying, club are obviously through to the next round of Champions League. People probably know that already. We've only just found out a couple of minutes ago. Carlos Forbes earning back his transfer fee already with a late goal, and Van Aken kind of finishing off. It's a great win, to be fair, over RB Salzburg. That's a really nice one to get. They now face a trip to Scott's part of the world, where they will face Rangers. We obviously talked about Anderlecht already. They're 3-0 up in their game against Sheriff. They should do the business there, but who knows what's going to happen? Not even sure. I haven't even seen if it's confirmed if the game's even going to take place in Tiraspol. It might be taking place somewhere else. Utrecht were able to move it to another city in Moldova, so I know Anderlecht are kind of keen to do the same because the Belgian Foreign Ministry was like, it's not a safe place to travel to, which is always ideal to hear about when you're a fan wanting to go somewhere. But yeah, that just about does it for this week's episode. As per usual, if you do like this podcast, please do leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. If you've done that and you want to feel extra generous, please do feel free to donate to us for the cost of running the podcast at Buy Me a Coffee. I will put a link to this Substack that Scott mentioned about OH Leuven. Definitely worth a read if you're intrigued and you're sick of hearing me talk about Leuven and you want to hear someone else talk about Leuven. That's definitely one to go and check out. But that just about does it for this week's episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. Hope you all have a great week and we'll see you soon on another episode.